Rosa walked slowly along the pavement, her cane tapping gently on the ground with each step. She was 73 years old, her hair silver and soft, her dark brown skin marked with the lines of time. She wore her favorite navy blue dress and a neatly ironed coat. Rosa was always careful about how she presented herself in public. She had lived her life with dignity, and she still believed in walking tall even when her body sometimes disagreed. The bank was not far from her small apartment. Every month, she went there to withdraw a portion of her savings, just enough to pay her bills and buy groceries. It was a routine she had followed for years. Rosa had no children and lived alone, but she had learned to manage. She knew almost everyone in her neighborhood, and they knew her as the quiet woman who always smiled politely. That morning the sky was bright, with sunlight bouncing off the tall buildings. Rosa hummed an old tune her mother used to sing, trying to make the walk more cheerful. She felt good, though her knees ached a little. She was looking forward to buying fresh vegetables from the street market after finishing at the bank. When she entered the bank, the cool air from inside wrapped around her. She moved slowly toward the counter, waiting in the line with others. The line was long, and people were restless. Some checked their phones, some sighed loudly. Rosa stood patiently, her cane resting in her hand. She believed waiting was part of life. When her turn finally came, Rosa stepped to the counter. The young man behind it barely looked at her. His eyes flicked up for only a second before dropping back to the screen in front of him. "Yes," he said in a flat tone. "I'd like to withdraw some money," Rosa said politely, her voice soft but steady. The man raised his eyebrows, as if annoyed already. "Fill out the slip," he muttered, pushing a paper toward her. Rosa nodded and took the slip. She reached into her bag, pulling out her glasses to read the small print. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from age. As she filled in the numbers, her pen pressed too lightly, and the ink looked faint. She tried again, pressing harder this time. It took her longer than most people. She could feel the impatient eyes of the people in line behind her. "Hurry up, please," the man said sharply. Rosa looked up, a little startled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "My hands are slow today." Some people in the line snickered quietly. Rosa lowered her eyes back to the slip, determined to finish. She did not like to be rushed, but she also did not like to cause anyone trouble. When she handed the slip back, the man frowned. "You wrote the account number wrong," he said, almost with a smirk. "Do it again." Rosa's face warmed with embarrassment. She had lived long enough to know patience, but moments like this still hurt. She took another slip and carefully began again. Her hand shook a little more this time, partly from nerves. She could hear whispers behind her. A woman muttered, "Why do they even come here alone? Slows down the line for everyone." Rosa's ears burned, and for a moment she wanted to leave. She thought of the money she needed to pay her bills, and she stayed. She did not raise her voice or argue. That was not her way. She had always believed that dignity came from self-control. The young man at the counter sighed dramatically as she handed the second slip. "Finally," he said under his breath. He processed her request, tapping noisily on the keyboard. Rosa stood quietly, her cane resting against her leg, trying not to feel small under his dismissive manner. The bank felt colder now, not just from the air conditioning but from the silence around her. People behind her shifted, waiting, some rolling their eyes. Rosa's heart sank. She remembered times in her youth when people ignored her, acted as if her presence was less important. Now, in her old age, she felt it again, like she was invisible, or worse, an inconvenience. The clerk shoved the money across the counter without looking at her. "Sign here," he said. His tone was flat, careless. Rosa signed. She wanted only to leave quietly, but as she turned, her cane slipped on the polished floor. She caught herself just in time, but a few people chuckled under their breath. She heard one of them whisper, "Shouldn't even be out alone." Her cheeks flushed with humiliation. She gripped her cane tighter and lifted her head, forcing herself to walk with as much grace as she could. She did not want them to see her cry. She had faced harder days in her life, but the sting of disrespect never lost its bite. At the far side of the room, a man watched. He had been silent the whole time, leaning against the wall. His shoulders were broad, his presence calm but powerful, as if he belonged to another world entirely. His eyes followed Rosa, sharp and steady. He had seen everything: the rudeness, the whispers, the small humiliations. The man's name was Ven. To others, he looked like just another customer, dressed simply, blending in with the crowd. But there was something different about him, something that made people glance twice without knowing why. He did not move yet, but his gaze remained fixed on Rosa, and the faintest smile touched his lips, not of amusement, but of quiet respect. Rosa, unaware, walked toward the door, her head high though her heart was heavy. She did not know that. Rosa moved slowly toward the glass doors of the bank, clutching the envelope of money in her hand. Her cane tapped lightly against the smooth floor. She tried to keep her shoulders straight, though her chest felt heavy from the embarrassment she had just endured. She wanted only to step outside into the sunlight and breathe again. But before she reached the door, the young man at the counter called out behind her in a mocking tone, loud enough for others to hear. "Next time, maybe bring someone who can actually write the numbers right. Save us all some time." Laughter rippled among a few people still waiting in line. Rosa stopped, her back stiffening. She did not turn around. Her heart ached, but her pride told her to keep walking. Then, a firm voice cut through the noise. "That's enough." The room grew quiet, the laughter fading at once. Heads turned toward the far wall of the bank. The man who had been leaning silently all this time stepped forward. His walk was slow, deliberate, yet strong, each step carrying weight that made others unconsciously move aside. It was Ven. He did not raise his voice, but something in his tone carried authority, the kind that made people listen without question. The young man at the counter blinked in surprise. "Excuse me." Ven walked up to the counter, his eyes never leaving the clerk's face. His expression was calm but steady, like stone that could not be moved. "I said, that's enough. She came here for service, not insults." The clerk shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the line of customers as if looking for support. But no one spoke now. The energy in the room had changed. People who had laughed moments ago now lowered their eyes, pretending they had not joined in. Rosa turned slowly, her eyes widening. She studied the tall man who now stood between her and the clerk. She had never seen him before, yet there was something about him that felt protective, like a shield had appeared in front of her. "I don't know who you are," the clerk muttered, trying to sound confident, "but this is between me and the customer. You don't need to." Ven leaned slightly forward, his voice calm but firm. "Treat her with respect. That's not a request." For a moment, the room seemed frozen. The hum of the air conditioning and the faint tapping of a keyboard somewhere in the back were the only sounds. The clerk swallowed, his face reddening. He muttered something under his breath and quickly busied himself with the next slip of paper, avoiding Ven's eyes. Rosa blinked in surprise. She had not expected anyone to stand up for her. She stepped closer, her voice trembling softly. "Thank you, sir, you didn't have to do that." Ven turned to her, and his expression softened. His eyes were steady and kind, though there was a hidden depth in them, something Rosa could not quite place. "Sometimes," he said gently, "doing nothing is the same as agreeing with what is wrong." "I don't agree." His words warmed Rosa's heart. She nodded slowly, still holding her envelope tightly. "I just wanted to get my money and go home," she whispered. You will, Ven assured her. But not feeling smaller than you are. Rosa gave a small smile. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. As the two stood there, something strange happened. The lights above flickered for a brief second. A few customers looked up, puzzled. The computer screens behind the counter blinked, showing lines of numbers and symbols that flashed too quickly to understand. The clerk frowned, tapping at the keyboard. What's wrong with this thing now? Vin's eyes shifted to the glowing screen. For the briefest moment, something unusual reflected in his gaze, as if he understood the strange code flashing there. His jaw tightened, though he said nothing. Rosa noticed his sudden stillness. Is something wrong? She asked quietly. Ven looked at her, his calm returning. Stay close to me, he said softly. His tone was reassuring, but there was an edge to it, as if he expected something more than just a computer glitch. Outside, through the wide glass windows, the bright sunlight dimmed unexpectedly. People inside the bank gasped, some stepping closer to the glass. It was not a cloud that had blocked the sun, it was something larger, moving slowly across the sky, its shadow passing over the city. What is that? Someone whispered. Phones were raised, cameras clicked, and murmurs filled the room. Rosa clutched her cane tightly, fear rising in her chest. She looked at Ven, who stood still as a statue, his eyes fixed on the dimming sky. You know what this is, don't you? Rosa asked quietly, sensing the certainty in his stance. Ven turned his gaze back to her. For a moment, he seemed almost distant, as if weighing whether to speak the truth. Finally, he gave a small nod. Yes, he said simply. Rosa's heart raced. She had only come to withdraw her savings. Now she stood beside a stranger who seemed to know more than anyone else in the room, a stranger who had defended her when no one else did. And now, something vast and unknown hovered above them all. Rosa held her envelope tighter, her hands trembling. She did not understand what was happening, but deep inside she felt that her path had crossed with Vin's for a reason. The humiliation she had suffered minutes ago no longer mattered. Something greater was unfolding, and somehow, she knew she was part of it. Vin's voice broke through her thoughts. It was quiet but firm. Don't be afraid. Stay near me. Rosa nodded, her eyes wide, her heart beating fast. She did not yet know who he truly was, or why he seemed so unshaken by the strange events. But one thing she felt for certain, as long as he was there, she was not alone. The bank was filled with whispers as people pressed closer to the windows. The sky outside was dim, not like evening but as if something vast had moved between the earth and the sun. A low hum, almost too faint to notice, seemed to tremble in the air. Rosa clutched her cane with both hands. She looked at Ven, the tall man who had stood up for her only moments ago. He was not watching the crowd or the bank staff, his sharp eyes were fixed on the glowing screens behind the counter. The numbers and symbols continued to flash across them, symbols Rosa had never seen before. They weren't letters, not numbers she understood, but strange shapes forming and vanishing too quickly to follow. What's happening? She whispered. Vin's expression was steady, though his jaw tightened slightly. Something that shouldn't be here, he said. The young clerk shook his head, muttering at his screen. The system's crashing again. I don't even know what this is. Looks like code. He pressed buttons harder, as though that could fix it, but the symbols kept shifting, glowing faintly. No one else seemed to notice the strangeness of the shapes. Most customers were too focused on the sky. But Rosa's eyes lingered on them. For a second, the patterns almost looked familiar, as if she had once seen them long ago. She frowned, her mind straining, though she couldn't place where. The hum in the air grew louder. Lights flickered again. Some people cried out nervously, and others hurried toward the doors, desperate to leave. Then, without warning, all the screens in the bank turned completely black. A cold silence filled the room. Rosa's heart thudded in her chest. Ven turned to her at once. His calm voice steadied her. "Stay with me." At that exact moment, the lights flared back, but something strange appeared on the main display screen behind the counter. A symbol, sharp and glowing, hovered there. It was not any language Rosa knew. It looked like a circle broken into pieces, with lines radiating outwards. The crowd gasped. "What is that?" someone cried. "Some hacker," another guessed, though their voice trembled. Vin's eyes narrowed. "Not a hacker," he said under his breath. "A signal." Rosa heard him clearly, though the others did not. She turned to him, her voice low. "Signal, from who?" Before he could answer, a ripple passed through the bank. It wasn't wind, but the air itself seemed to bend, like heat waves rising from a road. Rosa felt it brush against her skin, and her heart skipped. Two of the bank staff, the young clerk and another woman behind the counter, suddenly froze. Their bodies stiffened, their eyes wide, staring blankly at the glowing symbol. Then, as if something had switched inside them, their movements changed. Their voices, when they spoke, were no longer normal. "Target identified," the clerk said, his voice mechanical, almost metallic. The woman's eyes glowed faintly for a second. "Retrieve memory key." The customers screamed. Some rushed for the doors, others ducked behind chairs. Rosa's breath caught. These were not normal people anymore. Ven stepped forward, placing himself between Rosa and the two figures. His calm tone never wavered. "You reveal yourselves here? Bold move." The clerk tilted his head in an unnatural way, his face twisting into something cold. "Guardian detected." Rosa's cane shook in her hand. She whispered quickly, "Ven, what are they?" He kept his eyes on the clerk and woman. "Not what they seem. They've been hiding here, wearing human shapes." Rosa's chest tightened. "Aliens." Ven gave the faintest nod, though his attention never broke from them. "Yes." The two figures stepped out from behind the counter. Their skin flickered, their shapes rippling like water. For a moment, Rosa saw glimpses beneath metallic lines under the skin, eyes too sharp, voices echoing unnaturally. The crowd panicked, rushing toward the exits. But Ven stood calm, his body a wall of strength. He spoke quietly to Rosa without turning his head. "You need to trust me now." Rosa swallowed hard, her heart racing. She wanted to run, to hide, but something inside her told her to listen. She nodded. "I trust you." The aliens advanced, their voices overlapping, cold and mechanical. "She carries the memory." "Release her." Rosa blinked, confused. "Me? I don't understand." Vin's voice was steady. "They want what's inside your memory. Something you saw long ago. Something you don't even realize you remember." Rosa's knees trembled. Her thoughts spun back to her childhood, to nights lying under the stars, to one strange evening when she had seen a great silver light moving silently across the sky. She had told no one, afraid they would laugh. Could that be what they meant? The aliens stepped closer. Their shapes rippled again, their voices growing harsher. "Release her. Or face removal." Ven finally moved. His body shifted slightly, his stance balanced, as if ready for battle. He spoke with quiet power. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The clerk's eyes glowed brighter, and a strange energy crackled faintly around his hands. The woman's skin shimmered, almost dissolving into metallic light. Rosa's heart pounded, but she stayed close behind Ven. She realized the humiliation she had felt earlier was nothing compared to this moment. The world around her was changing into something she could hardly believe, and yet Ven's steady presence gave her courage. She whispered to herself, "Don't be afraid. Stay near him." The air grew heavier. The hum turned into a deep vibration that shook the walls. People outside the bank were screaming now, pointing at the shadow in the sky. Rosa's life had been simple until today. But as she stood behind Ven, watching two humans shift into alien forms, she knew nothing would ever be simple again. The bank no longer felt like a place of business. It felt like a trap. The doors were crowded with frightened people, some pushing to get out, others frozen in fear. The air was heavy, humming with an unnatural energy. Rosa clung to her cane, her heart thudding in her chest. She stood just behind Ven, who faced the two strange figures that only moments ago had looked like ordinary bank staff. Their disguises now flickered like broken lights, showing glimpses of what they truly were: creatures half flesh, half metal, their voices carrying an echo not of this world. "Guardian," the one who had been the clerk said in a flat, distorted tone. "Step aside. The woman carries what we seek." The other, the woman, tilted her head unnaturally, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "She has seen the artifact. The memory is inside her. Give her to us." Rosa's legs shook, but she forced herself to stay upright. She could not understand why they wanted her. She was an old woman, living a simple life. What memory could possibly be so important? Ven spread his stance slightly, his body calm but unmovable. "You chose the wrong place, and the wrong person. She is under my protection." The alien forms shifted again, their voices overlapping in a metallic whisper. "You cannot protect her from the directive. She belongs to us." The crowd of customers gasped, shrinking back, though some still tried desperately to push through the doors. The guards near the entrance shouted, trying to control the chaos, but even their faces showed fear at the sight of what was happening. Rosa clutched the envelope of money to her chest, her knuckles white. She whispered hoarsely, "Why me, Ven? I don't understand. What did I do?" Ven did not take his eyes off the creatures. His voice was calm, steady, as if speaking to reassure her. "You saw something long ago. You didn't realize it, but your memory carries the pattern of an ancient code. To them, it is a key." Rosa's mind raced. Yes, when she was a child, she had seen something strange in the night sky, a great silver shape that had left a glowing mark across the stars. She had thought it was only her imagination. She had kept it secret all her life. But now, to her shock, these beings were demanding it. The alien woman stepped forward, her form flickering. For a moment, her face melted into smooth metal with sharp, inhuman lines. "Give her to us, Guardian. Your duty is useless here." Ven's eyes hardened. "My duty is only useless if I walk away." Without warning, the alien woman raised her arm. A line of bright energy shimmered, forming along her hand like a blade of light. Gasps filled the bank as people stumbled back, knocking over chairs. Rosa froze. Fear rooted her to the spot, but she stayed behind Ven. She could not explain it, but she trusted him. Ven shifted slightly, his body angled to shield her completely. He spoke low, just for Rosa. "Whatever happens, stay behind me. Don't move." Rosa nodded quickly, clutching her cane tighter. The clerk figure stepped forward too, his form crackling with sparks. His voice carried a warning. "Stand aside, Guardian. You know what she holds belongs to us." Ven shook his head slowly. "She belongs only to herself." And then, the air cracked. The woman swung her glowing blade down, fast and sharp. People screamed. But Ven moved quicker than Rosa thought possible. His arm shot up, and with a forceful motion, he blocked the strike. The air shimmered, as if unseen energy rippled around him. The clash made no sound, but the shockwave rattled the glass windows of the bank. Papers flew into the air. Rosa shielded her face, her eyes wide. The clerk joined the attack, thrusting forward with crackling energy. Ven pushed Rosa gently backward with one hand, then stepped forward into the strike. The energy sizzled against his body, but he held firm, his expression calm, unshaken. The customers, those who hadn't yet escaped, crouched under tables or huddled against walls. None dared come near. They watched as the quiet man who had once seemed like just another customer now stood like a wall of steel against two impossible beings. Rosa's heart pounded, but as she looked at Ven, a strange calm touched her too. He was not panicked. He was not afraid. His strength was not just in his body but in his unshakable will. "Why won't you yield?" the clerk hissed, his voice glitching. Ven's answer was simple, spoken like truth carved in stone. "Because she is human. And humans are not yours to take." The creatures hissed in unison, their forms twisting, more alien than human now. The disguise of flesh peeled away further, revealing shining frames beneath. Their cold eyes locked on Rosa, even as Ven stood between them. Rosa gripped her cane so tightly her hand ached. She wanted to cry, to collapse, but something inside her refused. She had lived long enough to know fear, but also to know strength. She whispered to herself, "I am not theirs. I am not anyone's but my own." As if hearing her, Ven gave the faintest nod, his voice low but clear. "Hold on to that, Rosa. That truth is your shield." The aliens charged again, their forms glowing brighter. Ven braced himself, standing tall. And Rosa realized, in that terrifying moment, that her humiliation earlier at the bank had meant nothing. What mattered now was courage, hers, and his. Together, in ways she didn't yet understand, they were bound to face something far greater than either could have imagined. The hum in the air grew deeper, shaking the ground. The shadow outside shifted again, covering the city in unnatural darkness. The battle was only beginning. The bank shook as the two alien figures advanced, their bodies glowing faintly with strange energy. Their voices overlapped, metallic and cold, repeating the same demand. "Release the woman. She carries what we need." Rosa's knees weakened, but she held her cane steady. She stood behind Ven, who did not move an inch. His calm presence was like a shield, but Rosa could not shake the feeling that this fight was somehow about her. Ven's voice was firm, quiet but strong enough to cut through the noise. "You will not touch her." The clerk figure tilted his head, his metallic eyes narrowing. "She holds the code within her mind. You cannot protect what she already carries. The memory belongs to us." Rosa pressed a hand against her chest. "Memory," she whispered to herself. She remembered that night so long ago when she was a child, lying on her grandmother's porch, watching the stars. She had seen something move across the sky, a giant shape of silver, glowing faintly before vanishing into the darkness. It had burned into her young mind, but she had told no one. Who would have believed her? Now, decades later, these beings were demanding that memory. Ven glanced back at Rosa briefly, his eyes steady. "They cannot take what you do not give." "But I don't even know what they want," Rosa said softly. "I don't understand." "You don't have to," Ven assured her. "What matters is your will. If you hold strong, they cannot break you." The aliens stepped closer, their metallic limbs gleaming under the bank's lights. Fear filled the room again. Some of the last customers and guards rushed through the doors, leaving only a few frozen in hiding. Rosa's hands trembled, but she clenched them tight around her cane and envelope. The alien woman extended her hand toward Rosa. "You are fragile. You are old. Your resistance is useless. Give us the memory, and your end will be quick." Her words stung Rosa more deeply than the laughter she had endured earlier. For a moment, doubt clouded her. Was she too old, too weak to matter? But then she looked at Ven, standing tall and unshaken. His strength was not only for himself, it was for her too. And in that moment, Rosa remembered all the struggles she had faced in her life. Every time she had been overlooked, every time she had been spoken to as if she were less. And still, she had endured. Her voice, though trembling, rose above the hum in the air. I am not useless. I am not yours. I will not give you anything. The aliens hissed, their forms flickering with anger. The clerk's voice deepened, glitching like broken static. Then we will take it by force. They charged again. The alien woman swung her glowing blade downward, aiming for Ven. He blocked it, sparks flying as energy clashed against his arm. The shock rattled the floor, sending papers swirling into the air. The clerk thrust forward with a crackling strike, but Ven twisted, guiding the energy away before it could reach Rosa. Rosa gasped, clutching her chest. The battle was fast, almost too fast for her eyes to follow. Ven moved like a storm contained in human form, yet even with his strength, it was clear the fight was dangerous. As the clash grew fiercer, Ven spoke quickly without turning his head. Rosa, listen to me. Do not let them into your thoughts. They will try to break through your fear. Hold on to who you are. Rosa nodded, her breath shaky. She closed her eyes for a moment, gripping her cane like an anchor. She thought of her small apartment filled with old photos, of her neighborhood where children waved to her as she passed, of her mother's song she still hummed on walks. Those were her memories. They belonged to her, not to anyone else. The alien seemed to sense her resistance. The woman snarled, her voice sharp. Her mind is resisting. It should not be possible. She is only human. Only human, Ven repeated with quiet pride. He pushed forward, striking against the alien's glowing arm, forcing her back a step. And that is more than enough. The clerk growled, lifting his hands as a sphere of energy formed between them. The glow lit the walls of the bank. Rosa's eyes widened. She knew if that strike hit, nothing could stop it. Something inside her rose, a courage she had not felt in years. She stepped forward, just slightly, her voice strong despite her fear. You don't scare me. Do you hear me? You don't scare me. Her words carried across the room. The aliens faltered for a second, as if shocked by her defiance. The glowing sphere flickered. Ven seized the moment, moving with speed so quick Rosa barely saw it. He struck the clerk's chest with a forceful motion, sending the creature crashing into the counter. Sparks scattered across the floor. The alien woman hissed, rushing to her companion's side. Their forms flickered again, unstable, their disguises nearly gone. The hum in the air lessened, though the shadow outside still loomed. The alien stepped back, glaring at Ven and Rosa. This is not finished, the woman spat. The memory will be ours. In a flash of light, both figures dissolved, their forms breaking apart into glowing fragments before vanishing completely. The room fell silent. Only the sound of Rosa's heavy breathing remained. She clutched her cane, her body trembling, but her eyes burned with a fire she had almost forgotten she carried. Ven turned to her, a faint smile on his lips. You stood tall, he said softly. That took more strength than you know. Rosa shook her head, still catching her breath. I was afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear, Ven replied gently. It is standing even when fear is heavy. Rosa looked at him, her heart swelling with a strange mix of exhaustion and pride. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, truly seen. She was not invisible, not small. She mattered. And deep inside, she realized something important, this battle was not just Vin's. It was hers too. The bank was quiet after the two alien figures vanished, but the silence was heavy, not peaceful. Rosa stood gripping her cane, her breath uneven. She felt both shaken and stronger at the same time. She had spoken against the creatures, and they had faltered. That truth gave her strength, though her hands still trembled. Ven looked at her, his calm eyes steady. "They will come again," he said softly. "This was only a test. They wanted to see how much strength you have." Rosa swallowed, her throat dry. "And, did I pass?" Ven gave a faint smile. "More than pass. You showed them what it means to be human." Before Rosa could answer, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The glass windows rattled. People outside the bank screamed and pointed at the sky. The shadow above the city grew darker, larger, its edges glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Rosa turned toward the window, her chest tightening. It was not a cloud. It was something vast, a shape so large it covered blocks of the city. She whispered, "That's not possible." Ven stepped beside her, his expression serious. "It is a vessel. Their kind do not travel lightly. They have brought more." The doors of the bank burst open as a rush of people ran past, fleeing into the streets. Rosa and Ven remained still. From the shadow above, beams of faint light cut through the sky, touching down on different parts of the city. The air buzzed with energy, and Rosa felt it crawling against her skin. Suddenly, the two aliens reappeared inside the bank. This time, their disguises were gone. Their forms were fully revealed, metallic frames covered in fragments of false skin, eyes glowing like small blue flames. Their movements were sharp, inhuman. "You cannot hide her," the woman hissed, her voice echoing unnaturally. "The directive will not fail." The clerk raised a glowing hand. "Her memory is ours. The code belongs to us." Ven stepped forward, placing himself firmly between Rosa and the intruders once more. His voice was calm but strong. "No. Her memory is her own. And she is stronger than you think." The clerk launched forward, energy crackling in his limbs. Ven blocked him, their clash sending a ripple of force through the air. The alien woman swung her blade of light, but Ven twisted, striking it aside with his arm. Sparks lit the floor. Rosa stumbled back, her heart pounding. The battle was fierce, faster than before. Ven fought with incredible skill, but even he seemed pressed under the weight of two enemies. The aliens attacked together, their moves sharp and precise. Rosa wanted to close her eyes, to block out the sight, but Ven's words echoed in her mind, "Do not let them into your thoughts. Hold on to who you are." She gripped her cane and forced herself to watch. She realized something. Though Ven was strong, he was not winning through power alone. Each time he blocked or countered, it was with patience, with strategy. He read their movements, turned their own force against them. It was not just strength, it was will. Her eyes widened as she understood. That is what being human means, she thought. Not giving up, even when weaker. Finding a way when there seems to be none. The alien woman suddenly turned toward Rosa, breaking from Ven's fight. Her eyes glowed brighter. "We can take it directly," she said, raising her hand. A pulse of blue light shot forward. Rosa gasped, bracing herself. But then, instead of shrinking back, she stood tall. Her voice rose, firm and steady. "No. This is my mind. My memory. You cannot have it." The pulse of light struck the ground near her feet, shattering tiles, but it did not touch her. It bent away, scattering like sparks in the air. The alien woman staggered back, her metallic frame flickering. "Impossible," Ven struck hard against the clerk, sending him sliding across the floor. He turned to Rosa, his voice clear and strong. "Yes, Rosa. That is it. Your will is your shield." Rosa's heart pounded, but her fear lessened. She stepped forward, her cane steady in her hand. She lifted her chin, looking directly at the creatures. "I have lived my whole life with these memories. They are mine. You cannot take them. You cannot take me." The aliens hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered in their glowing eyes. Ven pressed his advantage. With a surge of strength, he drove both enemies back, striking them with a force that sent waves of energy rippling through the air. They crashed against the counter, their forms sparking and glitching. "You underestimate humans," Ven said firmly. "Her strength is not in machines, not in weapons, but in spirit. And that is something you can never steal." The aliens struggled to rise, their forms unstable. The woman's voice cracked. "This fight is not over. She cannot resist forever." Rosa raised her voice again, surprising even herself. "I can. As long as I breathe, I can." The creatures hissed, their forms flickering brighter before vanishing in a flash of light. The hum in the air softened, though the shadow above the city still lingered. Silence filled the bank once more. Rosa lowered her cane slowly, her body trembling, but her heart steady. She looked at Ven, her eyes moist but shining with pride. "I thought I was weak," she said softly. Ven shook his head gently. "You are human. And that is never weak." Rosa smiled faintly, though tears touched her cheeks. She had never thought of herself as anything important. Yet today, standing tall against creatures not of this world, she had discovered something she had forgotten long ago: her own courage. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The shadow above the city still lingered, stretching across the streets like a heavy blanket. People who had been hiding in alleys and behind cars peeked out, their eyes wide with fear and awe. Even the strongest had never seen anything like it. Inside the bank, Rosa stood beside Ven, her cane steady despite the exhaustion in her legs. The air was quiet now, but tense, as though the world itself held its breath. She could feel the lingering hum of energy, a reminder that danger was still near. Ven turned to her, his calm expression serious. "They may return," he said. "But what matters most is what you've already shown. Your courage. Your will. That is something they cannot touch." Rosa nodded slowly. She remembered every moment of fear she had felt, every time her body had trembled. And yet, through it all, she had stood tall. Her memory, the one the aliens wanted, was hers to keep. She realized that what made her human was not her strength, not her age, but her ability to choose courage over fear. Suddenly, the shadow above shifted, and the air vibrated with power. A low hum began again, louder this time, and Rosa could feel it deep in her chest. The aliens had returned more powerful than before. Ven moved in front of her immediately, his stance steady. "Stay behind me," he instructed. Rosa obeyed, gripping her cane tightly, her heart beating fast but steady. The two aliens emerged from the shadows inside the bank, their forms glowing brighter than before. They no longer tried to disguise themselves. The woman's body shimmered with metallic light, while the clerk's figure pulsed with energy. "This time, Guardian," the woman said, her voice sharper, "you cannot stop us. The memory will be ours." Ven's eyes narrowed. "You still don't understand. The memory isn't what gives her strength. Her strength comes from being human. And that is something you can never take." Rosa felt a sudden clarity. The fear that had almost stopped her before was gone. She lifted her chin, looking directly at the creatures. "You cannot take me, or what I remember. My memory is mine. And I am not afraid." The aliens paused, as if surprised by her voice. Their glowing eyes flickered. Ven seized the moment, striking the clerk with a burst of energy that sent him crashing against the counter. Sparks flew. The alien woman swung her blade, but Ven twisted, deflecting it and moving with precision that kept Rosa safe. For a moment, the fight seemed to slow. Rosa realized something important: her courage was not passive. By standing strong, by refusing to give in, she was affecting the battle. She could feel it. The aliens faltered whenever she held her ground. Ven looked at her and nodded. Yes, Rosa. That's it. Hold your will. They cannot break it. Rosa's voice rang out again, stronger now. I will not let you take what is mine. You cannot control me. The alien woman screamed in frustration, her form flickering violently. The clerk tried another attack, but Ven met it head-on, forcing him backward. The combined power of Ven's skill and Rosa's unshakable will created a force neither of the aliens had anticipated. The energy around them pulsed, brighter and brighter, until the aliens themselves began to falter. Their forms splintered, metallic and human parts glowing before shattering into fragments of light. No, the woman hissed, her voice echoing as her form dissolved. The clerk's figure crumbled, his energy scattering across the floor. With one final shimmer, they were gone. The shadow above the city lifted slowly, the sun returning to its full brightness. The hum of energy faded. Silence fell. The customers who had hidden returned cautiously, their eyes wide with amazement. Some whispered to each other, pointing at Rosa and Ven, unsure what they had just witnessed. Rosa lowered her cane slowly, feeling a wave of relief and pride. She looked at Ven, her heart full. We did it, she said softly. Ven smiled, though still serious. You did it, Rosa. You held your courage when it mattered most. You reminded them humans are not to be underestimated. Rosa thought of her life, of her quiet days, her small victories, and her struggles. She realized that her life had always mattered, even if she had never seen it that way. Standing in the bank, after facing what she had, she finally understood that true strength came from within. You see, Ven continued, it is not power or technology that defines a human. It is courage, empathy, and the will to protect what is important. You have all of that, Rosa. Tears welled up in Rosa's eyes, but she smiled. For the first time in years, she felt proud of herself. Not for anything she had done for others, but for the courage she had shown for herself. The remaining customers looked at her with a mix of awe and respect. The people who had mocked her earlier now looked at her differently. She had faced beings they could barely understand, and she had stood strong. Ven placed a hand on her shoulder gently. Your courage today will be remembered. Not just by me, but by anyone who sees what humans can do. Rosa nodded. I understand now. It's not about being young or strong. It's about standing up, even when the world seems too big. Even when I'm afraid. Ven smiled faintly. Exactly. That is the legacy of being human. Outside, the city began to recover. People returned to the streets, whispering of the strange shadow and the bright lights. Some would never know the full story, but the world had changed a little that day. Humans had shown their spirit could face the unimaginable. Rosa looked at Ven one last time. Will you stay? He shook his head gently. My duty calls elsewhere. But remember this, you are not small. You are never invisible. You are a human with courage beyond measure. That is enough. With that, he turned and walked toward the doors. Rosa watched him go, her heart steady. She had been humiliated once in that bank, mocked and ignored. Now, she walked out of it with her dignity intact, her courage shining brighter than any alien threat. For the first time in a long time, Rosa felt truly seen. Truly strong. Truly human. And she knew that, no matter what came next, her courage would remain.